BHS, Business Honoring Spirituality. And this morning we had an amazing speaker come to us and a webinar.
Great morning here at BHS, and I intend to be back soon.
Hello and welcome to BHS. We are a group of spirited business owners. We're not a church group and we're not a leads group, but we do value connection and education through inspirational speakers and interactive virtual networking these days. So I invite you to join us for the next hour as we get together in this special way 2 times a month. Today we've got a very special speaker, Chet Sisk, who's going to be talking about wait a minute. What's Chet's story here? Yeah, climate resilient enterprises. Thank you. He speaks on a lot of things, but in today's business climate, we do need to learn how to be resilient. And Chet's here to talk to us about that. But before we get into his presentation, we start things out with a little prayer from our licensed prayer practitioner, Dee Dee Rockwell. Welcome, Dee Dee.
Good morning, Anthony. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, good. Welcome, everyone, and we'll just invite you to kind of become concrete into your chair. Centering into this moment. Feel free to close your eyes and just connect with breath as we connect and come together in this special space, knowing and feeling and sensing the absolute eternity of all that is. We come into this moment and we let anything that is outside of this present time fall away, simply fade. And we gather, creating abundance, tapping into the life that connects each and every one of us, that moves each and through every one of us, all that we see, all that is, just like the sunrise, each day, the certainty. But we know that the future begins right now as we anchor into the love that is available to each of us. And we just open our hearts to the messaging that Chet is bringing to us, the wisdom that he will share with us, and the times that we will share together, just becoming present now. And we release this moment and we release these words into the law, knowing that it is already so, even as we ask for a prayer, so it rises up to greet us, the answer. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Dee Dee, for that beautiful prayer. And I know that we'll see you in about 25 minutes once Chet's finished giving his presentation in our interactive business networking Zoom room.
Yeah, I love that part. We'll see you there, Anthony. Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye. We, as you can tell, if this is your first time here at BHS, we're a little different. Our mission is to empower business professionals to be successful through education, connection, and spiritual principles. And today we've got a guest, Chet W. Sisk, who is a futurist, an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, and a workshop developer. He helps organize through the crisis of the moment in order to create plans for the immediate future. Chet's focus is on developing organizations and individuals that can thrive and succeed in a time of massive change due to climate change, technological evolution, and social disruption. He's a member of the International Institute of Inspiration Economy, an organization designed to inspire economies that engage the public and inspire innovation, empowerment, and possibilities. Chet has spoken on these subjects at the United Nations in 2015. He has presented in almost 30 different countries, including South Africa, Albania, Malaysia, Nigeria, the Netherlands, and Bahrain. He has taught at universities around the world, including the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban and Pietermaritzburg, South Africa. He is well as Al Akwan University in Afraim, Morocco. Chet is also the founder and principal of Universal Basic Resources, a consulting group that focused on helping develop climate-strong companies and organizations that they enjoy success in a climate-affected world. Chet is a consultant to the city of Denver, Colorado, as it seeks ways to develop fiduciary, logistical, and social response to potential climate change effects. He's written several books on personal and corporate change. He was born and raised in Waterloo, Iowa, in the United States. Please help me welcome Chet W. Sisk.
Iowa, baby. That's all I got to say. And I apologize, Anthony, for giving you all of these crazy names out of different parts of the world. I should have gave a guide on that. But thank you, Anthony. I just cannot thank you so much for inviting me back to be able to be with BHS, because I presented, what was it, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, and we had such a great time. It was the challenge, of course, is that we're not doing it live this time. And so I want to ask everyone to please give me your energy, because I am used to doing presentations with people's energy, so I can catch your body movements, your eye contact, the energy that you present. And now what we have, of course, because of the pandemic, we're working with screens. So it's a little problematic for me. I'm working with it. I'm doing the best I can. So I need your energy. I need you to send it to me so that I can feel it through the screen across the miles, and see if I can come up with some magic. I'm pretty sure I can. I'll do my best. Let's put it that way.
Great. Well, our viewers can hear you, Chet. If you encourage them to engage in the comments section, I can post their comments, as you can see here. So feel free to request that from them, and
cool. Okay.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I have a bit of a presentation I'm going to provide. It'll give us kind of a framework to work with. But before we go there, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how I got to this point, and because I think it may mirror a lot of the journeys that many of you are already on. And we're living in a very, very strange time, and not necessarily strange as in negative, although the 400,000 lives that were lost, and what I would say needlessly, because of our mismanagement of the crisis, certainly we want to make sure that we honor those lives in all of our prayers and in all of our pouring of water. I'm one of those persons that believe in the pouring of water. It's an African tradition, pouring of libations, as it were, to honor those who have passed. But it also is important for us to recognize that this moment is one of great opportunity. And that's one that we're not used to. I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about why we're challenged with opportunity, why we don't necessarily talk about opportunity, because that's really my specialty, is the focus on what is it that we can do at this particular time, what's possible, as opposed to the constant barrage of these terrible things that are happening, and how those terrible things are going to mess up your life, and you're going to lose your liberties, and there's going to be this terrible person running your life, and it's all of these things. That is, I will say this, I used to be a television news reporter, and you all know this, that we used to operate by the process of if it bleeds, it leads. So we would constantly get all of these negative stories out there, because I know you would like to say, it's the media. But the reality is that we're wired to go into that place of fear and defense. Now that goes back to our ancestral selves, our what they used to call the reptilian brain, but it's really some genetic memory that gives us that kind of, fear and defense thing because of the fact that it kept us alive. I mean, that's the way that we're able to, navigate the saber-toothed tiger hiding in the lurches of the woods in the bush. The only way that we could really kind of be aware of that is have this heightened sense of fear and danger. So that's an ancestral gift that was given to us back in the day. And now here we are in 2021. We're no longer dealing with the saber-toothed tiger hiding in the bush, but a lot of advertisers and even media people have learned to leverage that particular part of you in order to sell product or get you to vote for them. Fear mongering. It's just one of those things that that is part of the human condition. So I don't want to make it separate from the human condition. It is the human condition. It's just that people have learned to navigate and then leverage it oftentimes against your will. So there is a kind of a place for us to go to that we find familiar, and it's called fear. And we think of it as, and what happens, of course, is that we tend to make up our own stories in order to fill in the fear blank. I am fearful for, and then we create conspiracy theories and everything else that justifies our fear. So please don't be mad at people who are trying to justify their fears. Do something better. Light the candle in the darkness as opposed to cursing the darkness. And that's my job. That's really what I do around the world, is to help people to navigate that level of fear so that they can see the opportunities that exist in the moment. It's really hard. You'd be surprised. You would think that if you just come up and say, well, look at these great opportunities, people would just run to it. And that's just not the case. That's not part of the human condition. We tend to want to lean toward status quo because it's familiar to us, and that lowers our fear basis. And so when people come in and fear is familiar. It really is familiar. And so I want to emphasize this point. I wanted to start off emphasizing this point because of the fact that it's very easy to demonize people who work in that fear basis and that fear from that fear model. But it's just that I believe those of us who know it from this perspective haven't been loud enough. We haven't made our case strong enough, and we need to make it stronger about the possibilities of the moment, because that's where we are right now. We're right in the middle of what I call, most of you know the context of the dark night of the soul, that we're right at that point where we get a chance to decide whether we're going to stay in the darkness, the challenge of the moment, the crisis, the fear, or we're going to move forward. Now, people would say, well, looking at the political scenario, it looks like we've made the decision to move forward. That's not necessarily true. We're still in the dark night of the soul. We're still deciding, and we're still making our decisions about the path forward. Once we get out of the dark night of the soul, we start on this path toward other possibilities, but it's a journey. It is not a moment. It is a journey. So it is really important that we really start to make the case of possibilities. And that's, again, my job. And that's a lot of this is, right, opportunity is my new friend. And it should be. But it cannot be in a vacuum. This is where we run into problems, too, is that we tend to well, I'm going to get mine. And I hope everybody, good luck to the rest of you. We can't. There's a philosophy that I believe in. It's called Ubuntu. And it is based around the Southern African concept that all of us are connected. The model that we've kind of embraced for a while, it's called every man for himself, or I'm going to get mine, hope you get yours. But what we're starting to see, and we've been seeing it for a while, I'll tell you this, from an African American perspective, we've been seeing the crisis of that latter philosophy for a long time, the every man for himself philosophy. It is not robust or agile enough to navigate this time of change. The time of change that we're now in, the paradigm shift, requires a much more agile, much more robust kind of philosophical construct. And Ubuntu, the one that says that we're all connected, is the one that says if we tap into all of the resources that everybody brings to the table, we will have enough agility to be able to navigate this particular time. So it's one thing to say, I'm going to be opportunistic at this particular time, but it's another thing to say, how do we create opportunity all the way around? Because we all benefit from that particular moment, from that particular philosophy. We use a phrase with my company. The phrase is, when more people do well, more people do well. So we've been operating in this particular country for a long time from the perspective of, if I do well, then it's great for me. And yes, I can give back in charity to other people, but this is not about charity. It's a change from profit to abundance. It doesn't mean that we all don't do well. It just means that there's more to do well for more people. And abundance is different than profit. Profit is about your individual gain. Abundance is about making gain for everybody, at least everybody in your community, within your reach. And that's a different kind of structure that and a principle that needs to be embraced. And that's how we need to go into the current challenge of climate crisis. Because climate crisis isn't just our personal challenge. It is a global challenge. It is the challenge that requires us to see it from a global perspective. How do we make sure that we all do well? I can already tell you, I've been traveling around the world, and I can tell you this, that there are already people trying to carve out their little space so they don't have to deal with the rest of the world, because they're still applying the old philosophy. That is, I got mine, good luck to you, every man for himself. That's not how climate crisis works. I will say this, that the global south, the global north has created the crisis for the global south, but the people in the global south seem to be doing more for everybody, as opposed to people in the global north still saying, I'm going to do it for myself, and I hope the rest of the world kind of works along with me. Now we have to get to the place of saying, how do we make it work for the globe, for the world? And so what I'm going to share with you are some of the opportunities that exist inside of this particular change when using the philosophy that we're in it for everybody as well as ourselves. The profit and the opportunity comes when we see it from that bigger place. That's not easy because of the fact that we have been deeply trained and deeply steeped into every man for himself. In some ways, it's deeply cultural. It's been there for so long, we think it's truth. When it's not truth, it's just a choice that we've made some time ago, and we think that it's the right choice, not at the expense of, I think the numbers are 5%. The United States is 5% of the world's population, but uses almost 30% of the world's resources. That particular challenge is putting the pressure on the rest of the world, and we have to do our part in order to be successful for us as well as the rest of the world. Now I'm going to talk about it in the context, now that I've given you the big picture, let me talk about it in the small context, so that you can see what opportunities actually exist in climate crisis. And there are opportunities. So let's go to the slide. Do I pull this? Okay, there we go. The slideshow. Let's see if I can get it to the, darn it. Sorry, folks, I'm so used to working with Zoom. I'm going to share screen again from the top. There we go. And then I'm going to pull this. I'm sorry. 1 second. There we go. And from the beginning. All right. So let me share this with you. I'm just going to use this as a template, and then I would love to hear what you have to say. I love the idea of being able to see your comments.
And we
All
just
of those
have
things.
10 minutes, Chet, so keep it short.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. 10 minutes. All right, here we go. Climate change, the greatest opportunity of our lifetime. And I know people will sit back and say, are you kidding me? It's the greatest challenge of our lifetime. But as these things go, crisis and challenge and opportunity all exist in the same vacuum of crisis. So we have to see it from that particular perspective. I'm a futurist. That's what my job is to see what's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years. I must admit, I have the greatest job in the world. It's great. People invite you to say, okay, we're watching these trends and we're trying to make some kind of decision about our company going forward or our organization going forward. And all I do is, this is from my journalism training, is to say, these are where the trends are going. That's my background. I was trained at the School of Journalism at the University of Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, home of the Salukis. So if you want me to read your tarot or look into a crystal ball, I am not that guy. I just wrote a new book with my colleague, Dr. Mohammed Boheji. It's called You and the New Normal. And we basically, I'm giving you some cliff notes from that particular book about the fact that there are opportunities inside of this new normal. Do not go back to the old normal, folk. Don't do it. I know people want to say, well, we just want to get a sense of normalcy. In other words, status quo. But the challenge is that status quo got us to this place it got us here in the first place. So we really don't want to go back to the same kinds of situations that created some of the crises of climate crisis, income inequality, systemic racism. Why would we want to go back to that unless, of course, you're cool with that? I'm hoping that you're not cool with all of those things. What's happening, of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic, political change, climate change, systemic racism, income inequality. All of that stuff just equals out to the fact that we're in the middle of a paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift, again, is a moment, a flashpoint that's asking us to make another decision about the way forward. It is not like the weather where we just hope for the best. It is a moment that's asking us to make a decision. That's what a paradigm shift is. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, these are his words last November. The economy as we knew it may be over. And yes, it is true. It is over. So we're running in a different kind of economy. And so for my travels, my last trip before everything started shutting down was to Bahrain. We had this giant conference, and one of the things, these were financiers, and one of the things that became clear was everybody wanted to move their money toward climate change and climate resilience, communities, climate adaptation. That's where everybody is going. That's the new economy, where you now have an economy based around saving the planet. How about that for a thought, right? Again, as I mentioned before, we cannot and should not return to normal. I quite frankly, I think it's, you may not be my friend if you said you want to go back to normal or that which has brought us to this point. We are bigger and better than this. In fact, we owe it to not only to our neighbors, but to our children to create something above and beyond normal. Normal only means that we would just have more of the same that got us to this crisis in the first place. I think it was, I'm paraphrasing Albert Einstein, who says, the minds that got you here should not be the minds that will get you out. So that means we need to change who we are, how we think about how things work, and not return to normal if we want something better. Normal has become a bad word for me. We are entering a period of change and grand opportunity to finally do something about our greatest challenges. That's where we're missing the thought process. We're thinking that all we're doing is putting out fires. It's not about putting out fires. It really is about how do we leverage this moment to finally do something about the stuff that's been bothering us forever, like systemic racism for one, climate crisis, which we've known about for decades, or income inequality that's been increasing since 1980. All of these things, we finally get a chance to do something about it. Climate crisis is creating the platform and the opportunity for us to create enterprises inside of this level of change. One of the things that we can do, my company, Universal Basic Resources, has basically created a tool that allows us to fund and empower and counsel communities of color, entrepreneurs of color, so that they create climate resilient and climate adaptive companies. How about that for a thought? So now you have three things being taken care of at the same time. One, you're empowering communities of color to go and do something above and beyond what they're used to, in the sense that now we get to be a part of the climate change conversation. It starts to deal with income inequality, and we start to address climate crisis from all perspectives. So now you get the resource that communities of color bring to the table that have been sidelined for a while because it's just not been a conversation that's been shared. So that's one of the things that can come from this particular opportunity, and that's what my company, Universal Basic Resources, does. Of course, Fred Flintstone. For those of you millennials who don't know about the Flintstones, you're missing out on great art, but that's another subject. We can bid on climate resilient contracts with our cities and municipalities. That's truth. One of the things that's happening all around our country is that every particular city and municipality is developing a climate resilient office. They are sitting back and saying, we need to create some magic so that we can make sure that our community is climate resilient and climate strong. In fact, I work with the Office of Climate Resilience, Sustainability, and Adaptation with the City of Denver. That's a new office that was created just last year. So and it's happening all around the country. Though that's where a lot of the contract work that will come up for those of you who do RFP bidding. That's where a lot of the action is going to be over the next few years, mostly because for those of you who voted, you passed 2A with the City of Denver. And that 2A basically allocates $36 million to climate crisis resilience adaptation projects all throughout the Denver metro area. And that's happening all across the country. You can find out more about the investors' revolt that's happening. Those of you who might want to check your 401ks may know about BlackRock and Vanguard. These are two of the biggest consumer investment organizations in the country, and their whole focus now, there's been what they call an investors' revolt, where they basically read the riot act to Exxon and a few other companies and said, if you're not doing something about climate change, we're taking our ball and going home. And of course, they have to do something or they're going to collapse under the weight of a bunch of revolting investors saying, we'll take our money and do something else with it. That is happening around a bunch of different investment teams because they're recognizing that a lot of the organizations haven't been doing anything around climate change and just kind of watching it because they're petroleum based and they want to keep that money flowing. So there is an investors' revolt happening, which is great. New net zero homes and net zero home retrofitting will become the rage. That's happening. A lot of companies, I think there's 2 Squared A is one that's growing. That's a great investment opportunity for those of you who are looking to find where those great investment opportunities. It's really in the net zero homes. Those things are going to become standard in a lot of municipalities as they push out and start to say, we're going to provide more and more tax incentives for people who do net zero homes. That is homes that basically bring in as much energy as they put out so that it becomes net zero. It's great. And then really it's a matter of faith. One of the things that becomes really clear to me is that if we profess a particular faith, we always talk about this great and grand opportunity going forward and this beautiful future and all of these things, but yet we don't step into that faith, that is, we don't act on it, based around the idea that we can create that future. We not only can we believe it, but we can help create it. If we don't step into that, then I have to ask us about our faith. Do we really believe it? Or are we resigned to, well, that's faith, but here's the real world? I've heard that before. People who say they are of faith, but they say, well, that's what I do when I go to church, but this is the real world, so this is what I got to do. So to me, this is a matter of faith. Do we believe in the possibilities of this grand future that we speak of so eloquently in our Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon presentations, or is it just talk? So to me, stepping into climate crisis or climate opportunity is a part of that faith walk. Otherwise, I think you have to ask the question, what is it that you truly believe? My website, of course, is chetsisk.com. I always tend to say this on the regular. We have the opportunity to create a future that defies the odds, but that does require a level of faith. It requires a level of commitment on our part. It requires us to be able to say, is there an opportunity to finally fix long-standing challenges that this country and the world has faced that we can lead on, and we can use this moment for those opportunities? Is that possible? Yes, it's possible. Does it exist right now? Yes, it does. All of these things are happening right now. So this is the moment that I think that we really need to start thinking about, that not letting this moment pass us by going back to normal. We really want to step into this moment. And quite frankly, as people of faith, those of us who are spiritually grounded in ourselves and in our world, we should be leading this conversation more than anybody. So if we're not leading it, I tend to say if the best of us are not leading this level of conversation, the rest of us don't have a shot. So this is where we should be making our statement. And as I also tend to say, this is where we should be making our stand. So that is what I wanted to make sure that and those are just some of the opportunities that exist inside of this moment. I just wanted to give you kind of a brief overall of what it means to be in a space of opportunity and what possibilities can exist. There are no guarantees in this time, but there are definitely possibilities that we can move into.
Great presentation, Chet. I really liked the larger global view, and then, what can I do as an individual homeowner or as a business owner?
Yeah. And there's so many more. I mean, I've really just scratched the surface, but that's my job, is to see where this is flowing to. What are the trends? What are the opportunities inside of those trends? And they're legion, quite frankly. It's just that we're creatures of habit. We want to stay the course. But when we stay the course, and I shouldn't demonize staying the course, but I will say this: if staying the course at the expense of other people is your choice, then you have to stop and ask yourself the question, what is it that I truly believe? Because we'll say stuff like, we want equality for all, but yet if we stay the course, we're maintaining the system that is, in many cases, repressive. And is that something that we can do something about and share in the abundance? Yes, we can.
Well, I think it's great that we put more light on that here this morning. I'm proud to be a Coloradan, to know that we voted in a climate resiliency initiative, and that the city of Denver has an office for climate resilient businesses. So,
yes. And that's exceptional. I mean, certainly in Washington, California, and some other states are moving in that, and cities in those states are moving in that direction, but it's now starting to take hold out east in the South. Everybody recognizes that we are facing some challenges that are above and beyond what we're used to, and it requires all of us, all shoulders at the wheel, is what I say.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, I know that our members are waiting to get some one-on-one time with you in our Zoom call. So I'm going to put that Zoom link up here in the link, and I'm going to paste it in the comments section so that if you are watching, you can just click on this link in the comments and join our Zoom room. Yeah, Chet, if you've got it too, it should be in the email that we sent you, but
if you don't mind
yeah,
sending it again, I'll take that.
okay, here it's in the private chat as well. And for
Okay,
the rest
very
of
good.
you who are watching, thank you for tuning in to BHS and our live presentation. Our members always say that their favorite part is the interactive component. Since we have been isolated from one another, this is a great way to just get into a small breakout room and talk to some other spiritually grounded business owners. And it's our community. And so thank you again. We're running a little bit over, so this outro is going to be quite short. And I look forward to seeing you there. If you can't get the link in the comments, or you can't type it out in this streamer that goes across the bottom, just go to zoom.us and type in this number.